The URC is one of the most misunderstood rugby tournaments in the world, and even by its own standards, this weekend has been one of the most confusing that we've seen so far. We're in the second half of the season now, and it feels like everything that we learnt in the first half now doesn't matter anymore. So let's talk about all of it on this week's episode of the United Rugby Rewind. Let's start the show. I am joined by the full panel this evening of Irish Adam, Scottish Ethan, and South African Mohammed. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
It's nice to have you all here. I need to keep reminding myself that I should say Welsh Hugh, so to make it clear that we're from all of the shields. There's one voice from every shield here. Although I know I don't sound Welsh, all the others annoyingly have the accent appropriate to their country. But anyway, we'll brush over that minor detail because, as always, there's no time, and we have to get straight on with talking about all 8 games in the URC. And we are starting with Friday night, arguably the biggest game of the weekend. You know, we had some derbies. We'll come to them a bit later. But I'm going with Glasgow versus Munster as our first game of the weekend. And as tradition dictates, we let the winner talk first. So Scottish Ethan, B teams all round for this one. Well,
Yeah,
rotated teams without internationals.
yeah,
It was going really good, and then it was going a bit worrying, and then it ended fine. So I feel like I've summed it up for you there.
yeah. I thought it was a pretty good game. Both the pretty academy heavy, but I thought they did much better. Especially this Glasgow side, because the last time this lineup played was when they got absolutely pumped by the Scarlets, and it was just so much more improved all around. Munster were really dominant in the first 5 minutes, and they had a disallowed try due to a double movement. I can't remember who that was, but then Glasgow immediately responded by running the whole pitch for an incredible finish by Ollie Smith in the corner. Which you don't see as often. Munster, I think they charged down early or tried to charge down early. So like they had to retake the conversion, which you don't really see often, but I thought that was interesting. Lancaster intercept try was quite good, but then that was followed immediately by a Coughlin intercept. Um, so I'll get onto that in a minute, but I think Lancaster really should have been the man of the match because he was just
We
everywhere.
talked about him a lot on this pod as a
Yeah,
guy who's got a point to prove, and it feels like he's
yeah,
proven it a little bit.
yeah. And it's kind of so when he first turned, or when the worst kept secret in Glasgow transfer history was when, oh, Lancaster's coming to Glasgow. And it's kind of like, well, he's not the man we all wanted, but it was kind of like, we should give him a fair chance to see, because obviously Racing was a bit dicey at times. It's a different
No one
environment.
succeeds at Racing.
No, no. And it was like, you don't, it wasn't like, you wouldn't want it to be like a nepotism hire, and that obviously his dad. But I'm glad it's worked out well. He's been rough start initially, but oh my gosh, the last few games he's been outstanding. So the Coughlin intercept, I feel I think it was the first two, no, three of Munster's tries were pretty soft from Glasgow's side in that the first one intercept, but I think it was McDowell to Yule got well read. And it's fair play to Munster taking the advantages, but it's the sort of thing that Glasgow really were a bit sloppy in some ways. So that was the first one. Agunta Beju eventually scored after a hard fought 20 minutes. Abrams' yellow card, which was kind of against. I thought there is an argument that he tried to catch it with two hands, but I didn't think he was in a
You've
position
seen
to
him
catch
given.
it. Yeah. Um. So then that led to another Lancaster try. What? Oh, maybe I've got my order wrong.
This is his own
Uh,
notes, ladies and
yeah.
gentlemen. We make
This
our
is
own
this
notes on this show.
this is speed typing. Oh, that must have been the Mackay try. Yeah, that was the Mackay try because Lancaster passed to Mackay. So this was the first try.
Keep
Anyway.
talking. This
Oh yeah,
audio format.
I'm just no, I was just blinded
Just
by the
how amazing
attack.
it is. He just
It
completely
was
distracted. He forgot himself.
reliving my Friday night.
That's a
Um,
great juggle there. Sorry for that one. We're mixing up the order a lot here, but
yeah,
the prop um,
was it Banathy?
playing second receiver there, he does a great job to hang on to that ball because it nearly all fell apart then.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah. And
think
then, oh sorry, Adam.
Sorry, no, I was going to say Munster's scramble defense has really sort of let them down. There was a moment there in the midfield where two players went up and it sort of equated to absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
In and like it took away two defenders and then Glasgow completely capitalized. But I feel like this is Dan Kelly's try,
oh yeah.
individual brilliance. But I think Glasgow are really good at
Mhm.
capitalizing defensive mistakes that Munster made. As like Ethan sort of well, Ethan mentioned how Munster capitalized on Glasgow's mistakes, but
Yeah,
I felt like Munster are so much more clinical in that sense, and that's why, they're much more clinical and they're much more put together as well.
yeah. And I think because speaking of the Kelly try, that was another one of those soft ones where nobody tackled him. Because I
Mm.
think Lancaster was saying, I can't remember who's, because he gave it in the post interview chat
Yeah.
that it was him and someone else was like, oh yeah, no, I've got it. Or I thought, and he's like, well, somebody missed that. I mean, fair play to Dan Kelly for the finish. And then was it Gleeson?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was another soft one where the line out just went wrong in Glasgow's 5 meter. It was their own line out in their own 5 meters, and Gleeson stole it and
Wow. A lot
Yeah.
of clean
got the
breaks in
try.
this game. 12-7.
Yep.
I think as well it really shows how so sorry Ethan, I think it shows how conversions are so vital to get.
Yep.
You know,
It's becoming a bit of a thing for Munster now, isn't it? Goal
Yeah.
kicking.
It really has. You have Tom Wood, Keith Wood's son, playing for the first time for Munster, and you
Mm.
also had Paul O'Connell's nephew playing as well. So it's like it's a real changing. Like you had Evan O'Connell there as well. Like it's a real changing of the guard, and Edwin Odogbro's brother. So it's really like a family heavy team for Munster. But yeah, Munster make those kicks, it's 28-31. You would have argued that they would have tried to push back a little bit more, but as we said, I think Dan Lancaster had a very good game.
Yep.
He was really impressive, made all of his kicks. Certainly his intercept try was really opportunistic, as well as Ethan Coughlin's, to be fair.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I feel like Glasgow did very well to handle the scoreboard. Really, I think what let Munster down was all the missed kicks. Essentially, all the missed kicks. It would have looked like a better game on paper if they were to make the kicks, but yeah, Glasgow were clinical in that sense.
Oh, Mohammed, are you wanting to say something?
Yeah, so interesting game. It's always nice to see when teams have to play with their greater depth squad. You see
Mm.
some names you hadn't seen before. When I looked across like the Glasgow team for this game and the Munster team, there were still some quality players there. Like Sean Dogba was there, and I mean, like he blew up from last week. I didn't know Edwin had a brother, and then guy's massive. So, but like it's a bit annoying from a South African perspective because like these teams are forced to rotate because their players are in camp to start the Six Nations. But at the end of the rugby championship, the Sharks and the Lions, I don't know the Lions don't necessarily have that many Springboks, but the Sharks especially had to not have their Springboks and then go play away in Europe. And on top of it, all our second strings, I think. So it's like, who's doing the schedule? Why aren't Glasgow and Munster touring South Africa and facing Springboks if all things are fair? But then again, maybe at the end of the Six Nations, the players who played a lot in the Six Nations will then be forced not to play the next round in the URC, and then there might be an
You're
opportunity.
playing in the Celtic League now, mate.
Mm,
You play by our
yeah.
rules.
Ah,
Yeah.
wackers. Let me just phone the Kiwis quickly. This is like strength of schedule, yeah, but yeah, I need to look across the whole um season to figure out if that's the case.
Well, there you go. Any final thoughts on Glasgow versus Munster?
So I was going to say it's the 15 URC games in a row without Glasgow going for a penalty,
Huh?
And that's
which
ended now.
and that's now ended, and it's currently the joint longest consecutive win streak for Glasgow at 9 games in a row,
Ooh,
which is
there you go.
quite
All
good.
hail our new overlords.
Yep.
Well, top of the league now, Glasgow.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
th- I'll just have a quick glance at the table just to see what the
Mohammed, you said they were coming 10th this season. I must
Yeah,
have been
exactly.
halfway through the
Exactly. Yeah,
season.
just like sort of the kit episode. I did no
oh
preparation.
God.
I
Wait till you
just
see
showed up, and then I
Yeah.
was like, I need to put the Lions in because the Lions are doing really well in the Curry Cup. And I
wait
was
till you
like,
see who's
well,
in second all of a sudden. We'll
Yeah.
come on to that later. But
you
yeah,
think?
Glasgow top of the league with a very strong points difference. Their defense is amazing. Only 155 points conceded in 11 games. Good team. What can you
Yeah.
say? And like I got
Yeah.
asked about this earlier, and they were saying, "Oh, Glasgow are doing well," and Glasgow have been doing well for about 3 years now. They're just a
Yeah.
consistent team.
Not only in this competition, but the Champions Cup as well.
I
So
think that's
double
what they've got to
impressive.
worry about. I don't know, Eve,
Yeah.
from your point of view, but I'm not sure you can fight on two fronts.
Mm.
I think
Okay.
they're up for it. Because they did say, I think Saoni said following like the Toulouse match, which because they were kind of like, well, if we win it, let's just go all in that.
Mm.
Because obviously, if you can beat Toulouse, you could probably do quite
Hmm.
well in the competition. I think because Franco's really good at squad rotation, so I'd like to think he'll micromanage every single player's minutes, who goes where, when. He's good at bleeding forwards, but I think he needs to bleed a few more of the backs, which he did do for Matt Irwin for like 5 minutes in the position that we weren't expecting him to play in. Um, but yeah, I think if everyone's fit and healthy, I think they're going to go all guns blazing in both
Well,
fronts.
that's something. There's a reason to stay tuned in. Anyway, moving
Yeah.
on to game number 2. Mohammed, coming to you. Sharks versus Stormers. They've done it. They've only gone and done the double. Stormers undefeated in the URC not long ago, and now 2 losses on the bounce. And the Sharks. This has to be the best that we've seen the Sharks play in a long time. In a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Going into both games as slight underdogs. Fantastic game, by the way. I know we won by quite a large margin again, but it was edge of your seat stuff for the most part, and say until, especially in this game, until the last 20 minutes. I think it was slightly closer towards the end in the first game. Yeah, obviously super happy about the result. A lot of players like stood up. The new manager bounce step thing with JP Peterson. I mean, we did
So how many
lose a
games
game
has
in
he been
his
in charge now?
He did lose one game. We lost the Lions in Durban, which shows you like it's almost rock paper scissors in terms of certain stuff. Certain things went our way. I mean, we even got injuries from playing on that pitch in at Cape Town Stadium, which has sort of become a running sort of gag type of thing. The
What?
both teams kind of
Pitch toe
struggles.
all around. What's it called?
Yeah,
French
turf
toe?
toe. Everybody's
Turf
everybody's
toe.
getting turf toe. I mean, Salman Murat, who even Rassi said the other day, gets a lot of criticism unnecessarily because he does the things that maybe don't stand out per se, but he does the things that the coaches want him to do. And he's a vital cog for the Stormers in terms of their line out and physicality and in clearing rucks and stuff like that. So he got hurt. He came on and then got a 10-minute yellow card because of a team infringement, and then had gotten hurt before that and just didn't come back on because he's got turf toe now. So, but back to the Sharks, the overall squad, I was very impressed by. They rotated somewhat, so it wasn't like the same team exactly the same team that played the Stormers last week. But like for example, this week. Grant Williams actually started, and Jaden Hendricks was like the impact player off the bench. What was also interesting is, first off, is that it's almost like Sacha Feinberg and Gomez Zulu read and listened to all the criticism about the kicking because he was kicking it
Yeah.
really well, and he struggles from my perspective. He struggles sort of from the acute angles, especially if it's on the right and he's a right footer. I've been told by people who play a lot more rugby than me, and that can be quite challenging. It's somewhat easier to kick if you're a right footer, it's somewhat easier to kick from the left to like swing it back in, especially if your style of kicking is sort of a more of a arcing type kick. Of course, Andre Pollard doesn't have issues with that, but Andre Pollard's like the goat of kicking. But the then I was a bit concerned. Look, the Stormers went in with a 3-point lead at the half, but I was quietly optimistic. And we bossed. We had look the first half. Both teams had good opportunities, and this first 20 minutes of the second half, it was sort of even keel. But towards the end, the Sharks showed in key moments again, especially like line out time, key lineouts they came up. I mean, even Scarlets
Oh, that is a
legend
good kick.
Edwin Swart. I keep saying Odogbo. Edwin Swart off the bench, who played 5 games for Scarlets back in the day on loan. He played well because what's also interesting, Faisal Bata, who's been out the team for like 4 or 5 games, he came right in and started. So the Sharks are like rotating their because Bongi didn't recover from his injury from last week. But yeah, the last 20 minutes was all Sharks, especially that mistake by Galant sort of like threw them off because the Summers were kind of still in it, but obviously Galant won the URC, won the World Cup with South Africa. He's only got 10 caps, by the way, for the Springboks. Won the
What
World
was
Cup with
Warwick
South Africa.
Lance in the 2019 squad?
Yeah. Won the World Cup with
What?
South Africa. We gotta go check it. Then won the URC with the Stormers. Then went to Racing, and everybody knows what happens when you cover Racing, except for Siya Kolisi. Siya Kolisi is the one person who bucked the
And
trend.
Dan Lancaster.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
good old Dan.
What's his name? Who was that Stormers number 8? Diamani. Who featured Diamani? Oh, Mohammed's frozen. Yes, I'm going to say that he was right.
Oh
So-
yeah, he's still at Racing, and I understand he's playing quite well. He's more of a mobile 8, he's sort of a linker 8 as opposed to like a John Oaxa's Ranu over 8.
Okay. From a Stormers point of view, I think just again, it showed, or the Sharks showed, that if you take away the Stormers set piece, they haven't got much. There's not much to them in attack. And again, less than 2 points scored per 22 entry.
Yeah, Stormers. Look, they won 7 games. They lost 2 now on the bounce, right? There's a bit of a break. I think the Sharks need to not get ahead of themselves and say, "Oh, we're gonna go. We still need to like make it in the playoffs. We're 9th now. We maybe hopefully make it. Look, by a miracle, maybe we get a home quarterfinal, but we likely just make the playoffs. The Stormers need to do the opposite. The Stormers need to go. We started really well. We gelled as a team. We got a bit of luck at certain times. Things didn't go our way in these last 2 games. We're going to go on the break. We're going to refresh. We'll maybe get some guys back. And then we're going to come back because Stormers still numerically have a very good chance of finishing top of the log. They play 2 Scottish teams at Cape Town Stadium.
They're
they
8
play-
points behind now.
Yeah.
It's because they're not
Look-
getting bonus points.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about it. Also, they're not going to play it. They're going to play a lot of away games. And the next game at Cape Town Stadium is 50 days from now. So hopefully they can sort the pitch out before then, so it's not hurting. Because Stormers are the ones who play the most on it, so they're going to get hurt. Their players are likely to get hurt the most. The next game the Stormers play at Cape Town Stadium is on the 22nd of March, I believe, and it's against House Targaryen, otherwise known as the Dragons. So they should win that one.
Yeah, yes, I should imagine that the Stormers should beat the Dragons at home. If they can't, my goodness. We're just watching Siya Kolisi and Damien Willems have a chat here. I do assume that these two get on, but I also assume that this is an activation for Red Bull.
Yeah. That's definitely they were asked to do that. There was a lot of niggle in the game, a lot of pushing and shoving in the face and stuff. These people, they all. There's a lot of regular Springboks in the team, but they weren't holding back. So it's a very competitive nature in South Africa. When the game is still on, we're still going to move you, but the games are finished, and then we're gonna chill.
This guy on screen now, Jaco Williams, was responsible for my 2 favorite pieces of commentary that I've heard so far in 2026. One was get this man a scrum cap and let's see what happens. Obviously, the reference to the likes of Cheslin Colby, Edward van der Merwe, and Kurtley Arendse, who will wear scrum caps and play for the Springboks. And he also was responsible for the line, play silly games, win silly prizes. which was uttered after he capitalized on Warwick Calan's terrible mistake. But the thing about that Warwick Calan's thing is that you don't see that Jacko Williams has sprinted 60 meters, dived, and got his hand on it perfectly first time. It's an unbelievable piece of skill.
Yeah. So Jaco Williams broke through in the team to our awareness as Sharks supporters 2 Currie Cup seasons ago when we won the Currie Cup. We knew like a name on a sheet where, because most of us don't really watch the youth thing that much. And then we saw him play for the Baby Box the last season and then win the World Cup for the Baby Box this season. He's not as heralded as, say, Hashim Peed, as Bato Kane, or there was a third guy that also
Zachary
got into the
Paulson.
team. Yeah, that type of thing. But he was quietly doing well. He also played really well in that previous World Cup where they didn't win, and then immediately was one of the many players that came from that youth team straight into the Currie Cup team, which hadn't won a game, and helped them in the group stages go all the way to make the playoffs and then beat the Lions at Ellis Park. So him and Kakane, they broke into the team. And then he was sort of like on the fringes of the team, because my understanding is the coaching staff went, we want to manage this guy's development. Also, he's now known as Mr. Amazing, which is because in the post-match interview, every time they asked him a question, he just kept saying the word amazing. And the sort of Amazing thing is sort of like a South African aneurysm because of like an ad that was quite popular back in the day. So look, I'm happy for him. It speaks to the fact that we have a lot of good wings, and this year we even added PK Klobate from the Pumas, who had been at the Sharks, went to the Pumas for like 3 years, learned his trade, sharpened up, and then he was good when he left. He's even better when he came back. I know Adam mentioned the pre-pod discussion that he's read and or heard rumors that Werner Gach might return to the Sharks. As much as I like Werner, and he had his best season the season before he left for Ulster, I think we're kind of stacked in that position right now, unless maybe Makazola Pimpi also leaves. If Makazola Pimpi also leaves, then there's a spot for Werner. Yeah,
I can see that. I can see that for sure. So moving on now to, I pressed a button and something weird happened. Moving on to another game, our third game, and it's Leinster versus Edinburgh. And the Thaler put this perfectly. Shout out Thaler from Rugby Bits. He said on Blue Sky that Leinster are the call an ambulance but not for me meme this season. That it's like you think, surely not, and then you get to the end and go, no, it didn't. But they had us hoping there for a second, Ethan.
They did. I'm trying to remember what actually happened because I tried to forget what happened yesterday. So the first half, early yellow card for Edinburgh because Callum Hunter-Hill, I can't remember who it was on. Basically, he was the second tackler and it just led to head and head and he got sent off. Which is a bit contentious from some of the other PRD decisions later on in the match, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Then Leinster inevitably score the first try. Then Edinburgh probably had the best moment in the game with a Duhan try from, which I think it was a scrum. Then I thought it was McConnell first. I didn't realize McConnell was playing. It was actually, I think it was Ben Muncaster. Offloaded it to Velicott, and Velicott bolted, and then passed it to Duhan. He finished. Can anyone guess when it was the first
I
Duhan
saw
away
this.
try?
Yeah, I saw this. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find who I credited it from, but it's something like February 2020, something like that.
Yeah, which is
Wow.
insane. I know. I don't even know who that was against, but Jesus, it's the sort
Probably a Welsh team.
yeah, probably. It's the sort of thing you would have thought. Surely at some point he must have scored.
You'd think he must have, but then
Yeah.
again, that's 6 years ago. That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, he keeps his contract by just thrashing England every Calcutta
Well, he's not
Cup.
going to do that this year. If he's released
Yeah,
to play in
sure,
this
yeah.
game, he's not playing against Italy, is he?
I mean, Scotland Day versus England Day.
It's Kyle staying o'clock, I feel. But anyway, carry on talking about this game.
Then I'm trying to think what else. That was like probably the best thing that was in the notes. But then I can't even remember Edinburgh's second try. I can't. I've
It
got it in the notes. Oh,
was.
Satala. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
good. I can't remember how it started, but it was a good finish by Satala in that he was able to sidestep a tackler, and he ran it in like the whole 22 meters, which is good for him. I quite like Satala. I mean, he's had the worst luck in when he's been selected recently in probably like the worst environments to play in for Edinburgh, being Bath away in the Champions Cup and then the Aviva for Leinster. But his first try um, finished really well. And then it all just went downhill from that point. Um, because you've got the first, so basically in the second half,
That is the only highlight that the URC posted
That wasn't
for
even
this
that wasn't
game.
even that wasn't even Leinster v because Archie Snyman's got a buzz cut now. Archie Snyman's bald. No, so he's
Oh no,
I was
sorry,
gonna say he's
I
got
found another one. I apologize. I'm sorry, URC official accounts. Sorry, for audio listeners, it was just
yeah,
RG Snowman standing up and then sitting down again.
yeah. Oh, this might, yeah, this is the try here. Oh,
Oh, come on. Keep talking. It'll keep playing.
because I thought he looked like McConnell from like the hair, but and I think Velicott is crucial for Edinburgh's attack because he's like the only person who wants to play the game fast.
Hmm.
And it's a shame for Velicott because I feel like if everyone else matched his tempo, Edinburgh would have a lot sharper attack. But yeah, then in the second half, it all dipped as there's a very controversial decision. So I will acknowledge that I was watching this game at the pub and there was no audio, so I had no idea what the what PRD was saying. I had to try and figure it out from people being outraged on Twitter or from the gestures that the Leinster hooker basically he dove or dived into the ruck or in a clear out and elbowed Ben Velicott in the face, and he broke his nose. And I was apparently there wasn't even a penalty for that, which I was
no.
really confused by because I would have thought. I mean, it probably wasn't intentional, but I felt maybe under like reckless behavior or something for player welfare and stuff, they might have looked at that angle. But yeah, that was the turning point for Edinburgh, and like when Leinster really started to like come out in that what's that term? Is it second gear? That
Yeah,
you know
they
when
went through the
Yeah.
gears.
yeah
I think
Yeah.
is how I would describe it. And Adam, this seems to just be Leinster this year is that they're a second half team and they just seem to just let you believe that you might beat them and then just blow you away.
Yeah, they are really dangle the carrot team. Here you go. Here's the win. Then you then they just go for it. I feel like it was a really interesting game from an Irish standpoint because this is a Leinster team without most of their like well without any of their
yeah
internationals. This is like a really like stripped back Leinster team. You've got the likes of their front row with Jerry Caher, Andrew Sparrow, and John McKee, formerly of Ulster Academy. Ulster wanted him to be a loose head. He said no, he went to Leinster. You don't really hear much of it going the other way around, but then again, as I said with Leinster, they always have quality and depth. They still had RG Snyman, two-time World Cup winner, playing for them as well. I don't think their backline necessarily played that well. Saying that, you had Rico Ioane in at
yeah
13. You had a really strong
I
team
don't
there.
recall him
Joshua
saying
Ke
his name very much.
No,
no
he was
Hmm.
relatively absent from the game. I think he's a very interesting signing in the fact that sometimes I feel like with Rico Iwani, he might get caught out with the Northern Hemisphere like style of how physical the game is compared to
I
Super
just
Rugby. Do you know what I mean?
hmm.
I
I
think
feel like they had Geordie Barrett and then he was leaving. They were like, well, this is great. We should get another All Black. And they got him and they didn't bother to actually check like actually is he playing well? Because I don't think I assume he's on a decent amount of money. Like, put it this way, this is his sabbatical, so he's not come here
Yeah.
for, just for a pint of Guinness, has he? That's a great reason to go to Dublin. The I'm not sure that they would probably be anyone from
Yeah.
Leinster would say that they've gotten their money's worth out of him yet. I mean, if you compare to Geordie Barrett,
Yeah.
there's no comparison.
Yeah, but
I said
that
on
is a tough person to follow.
Yeah.
Gus McCarthy's got international experience, Adam. You didn't mention him. And did Will Connors get an Irish cap here and there, or is he always in the
Yeah,
fringes?
Will Connors is off to Leinster, no, off to Connacht.
Mm,
There's like a couple of them that are like, there was like international experience there, but it's not like
mm,
the traditional sense. But I feel like with the likes of Gus McCarthy, he's fallen relatively down the pecking order all of a sudden.
mm,
I feel like with on the Rico Ioane point I made on the Interpro show, made a point in the Interpro show earlier on in the season. If that Rico Ioane signing was made before Jordy Barrett, if the roles were reversed, it would have the same amount of hype that the Jordy Barrett one had originally, and then it would have been like Jordy Barrett minds blown again. But it just
Hmm.
happened to be that you signed like a Rolls Royce player and you tried to replace him with a former Rolls Royce
Yeah.
player. But
mm.
um it's also the game that I felt like Charlie Tector has put his hand up and he's gonna be in that Kieran Frawley position now. It's almost like they've replaced Kieran Frawley with another player that can play everywhere
Now that
else.
you
Like he
said that,
played.
did last week did we make the joke? Charlie Tector to Connacht in 5 years?
Yeah, he's the thing is though, now that they found he's Kieran Frawley type, they're just gonna keep him for a little bit. They're gonna keep him till he's about 28 and then he's gonna go to somewhere else. But Charlie Tector, who's his position is fly half, he played a very good game at fly half, I felt as well. He got a disallowed try for a forward pass.
Yeah.
But I do love when players really believe that they score and they do the whole setting up the kick and everything, but with priority. He just sort of stood in front of him and just went, no, no, that was clear forward pass. And I was
Yeah.
like, you're right in front of him. Why do you need the TMO there? And he went, just, oh, no, it was a forward pass. I feel like it's really interesting with PRD because I feel like he's one of those referees that will. I mentioned it on one of the group chats. I'm not sure if it was this one or the Interpro one that he loves to really make the game. I don't know if he does or not, but it seems like he really likes to make the game about himself. Like it's really weird from what he does in terms of those games. He sort of gets given a big game. I'd say this is one of the bigger games considering that there was international players taken out of it. And, it was stuff like that, like him standing in front of the kicker going, oh, no, it was quite clear. And you saw him on the camera. He was in front of the pass. It was like, you could have picked it up then. But yeah, as we say, it's Leinster going through the motions. Scott Penny scoring a hat trick. Scott Penny, um, what's he got to do to get an Ireland cap? It's really weird because I feel like if he was in any other province, he would be like their starting seven almost. But especially for Connacht, what she's going to sign for them this week, like at the rate that's going. But yeah, Scott Penny scoring a hat trick. Relatively simple hat tricks for back rowers, maul over tries. But I need to make one more point, and that is Edinburgh's last kick, which just
Yeah.
went right into
Yeah.
the right into the huddle. Right into Leinster's huddle.
I
Like
know.
they were all, I don't know why they were trying to charge it down. It seemed really pitiful. Like, why would you charge down a last minute kick that requires nothing in the game? But then it was the replacement fly half, I'm not sure of his name,
Yeah.
just absolutely launched it straight at them. It was like a really low, it was almost like a Grubber style kick right at them. And I was like, yeah, fair play to him. Release a bit of anger.
So the worst thing about that kick was that if any of the missed conversions or penalties went through, that would have been a losing bonus point.
Yeah.
And at the
Yeah.
last sec, because there could have been a whole try worth of points, the converted try worth of points if Ross Thompson and Cammy Scott could kick, which makes it hard because it was a 28-20, it would have been 28-27. And yeah, Edinburgh really
Hmm.
needed something there.
It's mad because it's almost like designated kickers have came out of fashion for the likes of Edinburgh
Yeah.
and Munster. When you look at teams that are really like missing their kicks, you're just like you
I tell you one thing that
designated
those
kickers.
teams have got in common: Ben Healy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's the Ben
He can
Healy
kick a
curse.
goal.
He can kick a goal, but
Yeah.
he can kick a goal, and also I feel like one of my hot takes is he's going to appear for one of the Irish sides again at some point in his career. I feel.
He could be
I
the
mean,
new JJ Hanrahan.
Yeah. He goes to Newport, he'll go to Claremont and then Newport and then show up again for Munster.
Yeah. This is my thing, just quickly self-promotion on Leinster, is that I do think that the whole how they're approaching games, how they're approaching the season is a plan because it just keeps happening. And it can't, they've won 11 games in a row now. It can't just be luck. It is, this is what they're doing. And the stat is that on aggregate for their last, also for the whole season, actually. And for the whole season, they have lost the first half 167, 190. But then they've won the second half 249, 124. So they're doubling up the opposition in the second half.
It, I do feel like it's a change of character because we said last year when it came to when Leinster lost against like the likes of Northampton, I said it the same about Ireland as well because they play a very similar setup. Also, they've got a lot of Leinster players in it. Is that they were too afraid to chase games. Once you had a lead on Leinster, that was sort of it, and they get caught out like the likes of Northampton last year when there was like a big old thrashing that they had and they looked shocked. So I think it's sort of like a Leo Cullen's like, let's calm it down first half, and then let's just go like, remember we are Leinster lads, and just be like that. That's all the team talk is like, we are Leinster, and just go on for the win there. But it's sort of good to see that sort of, well, not good to see in terms of like, of course there are rivals, but as the Irish correspondent, it is good to see that they are sort of changing that mentality, and that is a mad stat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyway, coming back to the next game that on the agenda. Oh, quickly before I do, Warwick Land, 2019 World Cup, scored a try against Namibia and scored a try against Canada.
I mean, if you don't score a try against Namibia and go and score a try against Canada, they probably drop you from the team. But yeah, weird career for him because he was a under 20 star. Everybody wanted to sign him. Bulls had him. He played really well for the Bulls. When he left the Bulls for the Sharks, sorry, for the Stormers in 2020, the Bulls were really upset. Sharks supporters were kind of like, we could have used him because we didn't really have a senior fullback. Had a good season, like I said, for won the URC with the Stormers, but unfortunately just fallen off. But hey, look, he's a talented player. He's 30 years old now. He just needs to clear his head. Obviously, he made even leading up to this, he's made some mistakes. This is the most high-profile mistake. I'm reluctant to throw any players away, so look, I wish him the best going forward. I mean, he's not playing the Sharks for the rest of the season unless we meet them in the playoffs.
Yeah, true. Anyway, game number 4 of this weekend is Benetton versus Scarlets on Friday night. 20 points all draw. So by speaking about this game, we'll have spoken about each nation, I think. Yes. And yeah, as a Scarlets fan, I was happy with the performance and I'm okay with the results. Obviously, Carmen Leggett-Jones has missed a conversion attempt, which we could have won it, but Benetton also missed 3 penalties, including 2 in the last 5 minutes. So I think a draw is pretty much a fair result. I was looking forward to this game because every week I come on this podcast and I say I've got nothing to say about Benetton. So I thought, at least now I'm going to watch a full 80 of Benetton and I'll have something to say. And I still don't. I still don't. They really brought nothing. They really brought nothing.
You couldn't see the game, so I can't imagine.
I'll come
I
on
can
to
imagine
that
it was
later.
like I can imagine it was like a radio present. Like a
I'll
radio
come on to that in
show.
a moment. But really, in attack with the ball, Benetton had the vast majority of the ball and territory in this game. They really didn't do anything with it. There was no spark. There was no key man. There was no let's get the ball to this guy in space and see what he can do. There was no let's try this. There was no invention. There was no creativity. There was no va-va-voom. There was no snap, crackle, and pop about them. Malachi Fekitoa was on the pitch in this game. He played so badly that the number 12 has been removed from the lineup on the URC website.
Forever
I don't,
forgotten.
I don't even recognize their fly half because normally it's Umaga.
Something very weird has happened with the lineups here.
They,
Because I was
they've
about
got
to say
24. They've got 24 players in the Scarlets team as
because
well.
I was about to say
Oh,
that
there is
Malachi
insights.
Fekitoa was in the team, but they didn't say his name. But he appears to have been removed from the URC website. So now I don't know whether he was on the pitch at all.
Oh,
And that would
the
explain why I
URC
didn't hear his name said.
the URC website is who's managing that thing? Who's ever managing it doesn't really like rugby, so they need to hire one of us or producer Lee or something.
Yeah. So anyway, so Paolo Odogwu scored a try. It was an okay try. I think I'll find his celebration in a second. But Scarlets won on the try count 3-2. And Benetton were taking shots at goal from pretty early on, which kind of set their mindset going into this game. Just a very meh team. We've learned that their coach is leaving and they're going to get a new coach in. So there's something. Maybe they can get Scott Robertson, but it they just didn't do anything really noteworthy in this game. They had, like I said, the best of the territory in possession, but just didn't do anything with it. Whereas the Scarlets, if we look at the Scarlets tries by contrast, are there any actually loaded? No, there are none actually loaded. So I can't show you the Scarlet tries by contrast, but take my word for it. There's something cool in all of them. Like I said, Carwyn Leggett-Jones, 18 years old, had to be pulled out of college to train for this game. And now he's starting against Benetton. Heaps of talent. There's loads of hype around this kid. And he got 2 try assists in the game. And one of them, well, actually, they were both pretty cool, actually. So he wasn't perfect. Some of his kicking from hand was a bit wayward, but he's clearly now at 18 years old, Scarlet's second choice fly half. So he's clearly doing something right. Like I said, there's loads of hype about him. But the main thing to say about this game, as you rightly said, Adam, is the fog. This was Carwyn Leggett-Jones lining up the conversion attempt for the second try. And as you may notice, you can't see the posts.
Did they move the stadium to Silent Hill?
Oh, I love that.
He did miss this attempt, if you're interested.
Oh, imagine if he got it. Oh, imagine if he got it.
He did not. He did not get it. Although his first try assist was so cool that it was so miraculous that the fog briefly lifted so we could all see it and then came back again.
I once trained in fog when I was playing under 18 rugby and we were doing a kicking drill. Don't know why, because we were in the back three and we were doing kicking drills. And I must say, it is terrifying trying to predict where a ball goes. Like fair play to them for playing in it. It's mental.
As he was lining up to take that, you can hear Andrew Brace on the ref mic go, "Lads, I can't actually see the sticks. We're going to have to make a decision here." And he goes over to the touchline and he consults with the fourth official. And the fourth official, for some reason, says, "I don't think it's that bad." And then Johnny Williams, who is the Scarlets captain, because if you call it before 60 minutes, the game has to be replayed. But if you call it after 60 minutes, the result stands. And I think the Scarlets were trailing at the time. And Johnny Williams just goes straight over to the ref and goes, "We want to play on." Because we were losing. And Andrew Brace is clearly, I think his first thought is to call it off. And I think it would have been fair enough because on TV, it was an absolute, you couldn't see what was going on. I was watching it no, fair play. You genuinely can't see. And the commentators were like, "I'd love to tell you what's happening, guys, but I can't see." But no, they decided to keep it going. And at the end of the day, I think probably the right decision. Just about. We got to a result that seemed fair enough. That's actually 2 seasons in a row the Scarlets have drawn with Benetton 20 all away. So
Wow.
there's something, if nothing else. So yeah. Any questions on that one?
I find it interesting that whole 60 after 60-minute one because I feel like we played Treviso in the Champions Cup many years ago and it was foggy from the start and you just did not know what was going on. But is there actual visibility rules in terms of that then? Can you actually legitimately call a game off because of the fog?
Has to make a judgment call. I would say that, if there was you have to stand on the 10-meter line and if you can't see the posts, then you have to call it off or something like that. No, I'm not saying exactly that, but something along those lines might be a good rule. But no, I don't think that there is a specific rule. Someone did say in the comments of one of the Scarlets posts that they need to bring back that high-vis yellow ball that they used to have in Super Rugby. Remember that one?
Oh yeah.
They need to bring that back, and then we'll all be able to see what's happening much, much better. Because when they were putting up kicks, you heard the thunk of the ball being kicked, and then you just wait, because you can't see where the ball is, you can't see where the chases are. So fair play to the players for making it happen in the end. I just want to shout out once again, Fletcher Anderson. What a player! What a signing! Plucked from obscurity, playing for Tasman, I think it was, down in NPC. someone in New Zealand needs to be kicking themselves that they've missed this guy. He's so good, and out number 8. He's exactly what we've been missing for years, ever since Callum Mahoney left. Yeah, absolutely love him, and he doesn't like being called Fletch. I'll tell you why later on. But that just brings me to neatly wrap up the first half of the show and say, if you're enjoying what you are seeing so far, please consider subscribing to the Global Guide Night. I can tell you that we are within touching distance of 1,400 subscribers, and we want to get to 1,500 by the end of the season. To do that, you're going to need to hit that subscribe button. We are currently weighing up what the plan is for the Six Nations, but in the meantime, if you need URC chats, this is where you have to get it from. Also, if you're listening on audio, give us a 5-star review, share a link with a friend. It's really hard to grow the audio platform for shows like this. So if you could help us out, leave a comment on Spotify as well. All the help is much, much appreciated. Cheers in advance. All right, let's move on to the next game. We're going to, actually, I've changed up the order, and we're going to stay in Italy and talk about Zebre versus Connacht. So, Adam, Connacht got a win again. Finally, the pressure was on them and they got it done.
Tell you what, it was one of those games where not a lot happened in the first half, because nothing really did happen in the first half. I felt like they were sort of, the Connacht and Zebre were sort of it was like basically an arm wrestle until like this until the second half, and then that's when everything started to come into play for Connacht. This is a Connacht team that haven't really been affected, I would argue, by the Ireland selection process. That's mainly due to, well, the likes of their starting Ireland pack anyway. The likes of Bundy, Bealham, and, well, Hansen's injured, but the likes of Bundy and Bealham haven't really been playing for them. So they will have a stronger team like for this sort of block. I thought the likes of you had the likes of Paul Boyle, I think, was playing a very good game. You had Josh Aroni relatively bringing it up to the line as well. I thought Zebre played like quite a good second half, but Connacht made Connacht had a lot of heart. As you can see by the try scoring bit, 80 plus 11, they were going for that bonus point, like they were completely going for it. Like there was a lot of heart in that Connacht performance, and I feel like with Stuart Lancaster, like this is the type of game that he needs. Like, where there's a lot of humming and hawing about Lancaster being the right option, as they would say, but I'd say that this Connacht performance, especially after last week, and like we say that Connacht are a 60-minute team. They showed a very
They're a
different
90-minute
game.
team now.
They're a 90-minute team. They're a football team now. Shout out to Sam Gilbert, who I think has hit, it's something like 29 kicks in a row.
That's a good stat.
His first 29 kicks in senior rugby have been 29 good ones, which is incredible. I think he's been such a great pickup for Connacht as well. You had the likes of, well, the Oshie McCormick try at the end. You could always see the relief in all of the faces, both in Zebre and in Connacht. But yeah, really good game for Connacht. I feel like the likes of Joe Joyce, who's moving on to Gloucester next year, put in a very good performance as well. Um, and yeah, I feel like things with like this sort of block for Connacht, I think they've got a game in hand. Like, this is a perfect block for Connacht because this is their first
It's against the
string
mighty
team.
Scarlets, so they're not going to win that.
Oh yeah, well, at the minute you never know, but you have the likes of Che Mullins, who I think is a very good winger as well, playing great rugby as well. Cahill Ford playing a solid game too. I just think that, as I said, this is sort of came at a right time for Connacht. They're sort of at the bottom end of the table. Sadly enough for Connacht, that everyone else in the lower table are starting to gain points as well. So it really makes the URC great, though, and it makes the URC unique.
Yeah, I have to say that I watched this game because I was interested by it because it was a bottom of the table clash, and I'm weirdly fascinated by those. I have to say that I wasn't that enthralled by Connacht, and I know they've won the game comfortably, but I really wasn't inspired by watching them. I felt like this is a problem that I've observed with Connacht for a while now, and it shows up in the stats, is they don't really have like a go-to player. They don't really have like a give the ball to this guy in space and he'll do something. They don't really have a, when we get a turnover, who do you want to have the ball? Who's calling the shots? Who's the main man? Kind of thing. There's a lot of structure for the sake of structure in their play.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of like, whoa, you go in that first half, especially, it was like, oh, you're going through a lot of effort for not much reason at this point.
I'd argue that that's the Lancaster way of playing. You saw that with him when he played for Leinster. I think the only difference is that when Lancaster had Leinster, he had a team full of superstars. Like
Mm.
he's trying to implement a same game plan. But as you say, there's not a standout superstar in that team. I do really like. I'd make the case for Che Mullins because he's really good and he's really quick. However, he's a winger. You need somebody else to be there as well. Um, but yeah, I find it an interesting one. I feel like when you have a fly half as well that really runs the ball up, and he makes a few mistakes, Joshua Oni, but he also creates a lot more space and he likes to offload the ball more. But as you said, like but yeah, we see here Connacht dominated possession. They're trying to make, they sometimes make it look a lot very difficult to make, like, well, very difficult to score a try. But once they did score
Yeah,
that try,
they
it
said
was sort of like
60% possession, 3 clean breaks. Zebre actually made more clean breaks.
but they're trying to play that bash up rugby like that Leinster did. I think it's a Stuart Lancaster coaching setup thing because as I wouldn't necessarily would say that Connacht would have the biggest pack in the world. You certainly have a lot of strength in like so Joe Joyce and Paul Boyle in there, but and Sean Jansen. But yeah, it's that bash up playing rugby, that ugly rugby that I'd say they went out and that ugly rugby proved it when they were on the pitch for 91 minutes and they were just playing bash up rugby. They just kept on bashing at the line, bash, 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 bit of a maul, and then they scored. They're sort of trying to bully teams with a pack that isn't a big enough pack, arguably enough. It's something like what happened to Ulster a couple of years ago. You're trying to play a particular brand of rugby that requires you to have a much bigger pack than you do. So that makes it look a lot more difficult. In this case, it really worked for Connacht because Zebra didn't have all their Italian internationals. They haven't really been playing great in general anyway. But they could afford to do that against Zebra, but as you said, it does make it look like a bit more of an effort. And teams playing for 91 minutes isn't ideal, especially when you're winning.
Yeah. Anyway, Mohammed, did you want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, oh, the last question would be like, how many internationals does Zebre have? I don't maybe follow Zebre that quickly. I didn't realize they had that many, or I didn't know they had any. But the thing about Connacht is weirdly, when I watch them on television, they didn't necessarily stand out either. The way I would articulate it is they lacked a certain X factor. I would think that Hansen would provide that, and he has in some of the games I watched them. And then I was incredibly fortunate enough of the last season, April time, to watch Stormers Connacht at Cape Town Stadium, and it just reinforced my thoughts on it. It didn't change anything. Yes, look, when you see them in person, they're much bigger. They look fit. They look organized. They look focused. But like they lack that X factor. The only person who like stood out to me was like Finley Beelan because he was recognizable. I didn't really know the other players that well, and nobody stood out. Like Sasha Feinberg and Gomez Zulu sort of brings that sort of dynamism. Fussy when he broke through in the bull setup, it would be someone like Chesson Joester and that type of thing. So I don't think it might not necessarily be a Lancaster thing, but it's someone needs to like step up sort of and stand out. Otherwise, Connacht, good team. They defeated the Sharks this year in Galway. Um, but if they're actually going to win things, they need sort of a core of like X Factor players, or at least like high quality players. And they have like
Yeah.
Abandi's super old
They,
now. Hanson's
they,
always injured, and Finley Beelan is he like a scum the other guy to death guy? I don't know.
they
Yeah,
sign a. Sorry, go ahead, Adam.
Oops. Oh, sorry. I think with the issue with Connacht having big players, is that they always would go to a Munster, Leinster, or Connacht. That's the thing about Connacht, is that they're almost like, to put it in football terms, the Borussia Dortmund of Irish rugby. They like having younger players. They like bringing them through. But then once they sort of hit that mark, they will go to a Munster. They will go to a Leinster. They will go to an Ulster, because that's where the progression lies. I feel like with when Connacht had the old stadium, I feel like that's when Connacht having a new stadium and the likes of Stuart Lancaster coming in to actually have a forward future vision and keeping those core players, which at the minute they're Ben Murphy's apparently off to Munster. Matthew Devine's off to Ulster. That's two of their scrum halves that they want to keep. That they're two really good young scrum halves, under 28 Irish internationals. But now they're looking at signing players from Leinster, because Stuart Lancaster used to coach Leinster, so he would have a couple of contacts there. But I think their key thing is fostering an identity and keeping young players, and I feel like that's what we're all saying now. Is the likes of Kieran Frawley's not going to go out west and set the world on fire. However, it's a name. He could change a game, but he won't necessarily have that flair that, as we all say, that Connacht needs to be like, we need to pass to him every time.
I was looking at transfers and stuff in the URC, and Connacht actually signed the most players of any Irish province. They go out and externally recruit. If you look at Leinster, it's like ridiculous. You look at Leinster's signings, it's like 80% promoted from academy. Whereas Connacht is just like signing from outside all the time. And they also lose a lot of players. A lot of players leave Connacht quite a lot. So their squad is constantly doing this, which is always going to hold a team back. That's always going to be a negative thing. But it doesn't feel like they're that successful with their non-Irish qualified signings either. Like they're not successful signings. If I like contrast the Scarlets, my team, like players that we've plucked from Super Rugby, for example, Tane Plumtree, Blair Murray, and Fletcher Anderson, not even taken from Super Rugby, really, taken from NPC, and they've come in and been, all three of them have been massive hits. Two of them are cap for Wales. One definitely would be getting cap for Wales if he was Welsh qualified. Or you could look at Max Douglas, or you could look at Sam Lousy, or players like this who Connacht could get. Those are achievable players for Connacht, but they're just not. They're not getting in players who are actually making a difference for me.
I'd say Sam Gilbert's an exception to that. Sam Gilbert came from the Highlanders, and
Right.
he's
yeah.
and Sam Gilbert has played. I've just got up his stats there. 57 times for the Highlanders. He's played for Otago as well in the NPC. As I said, I feel like Connacht need a forward future. Like, they need to look attractive to the players that they're going to. They used to have a time, I don't know if any of you remember, when they used to just pick up Aussie Sevens players. They just used to pick a bunch of, like, that's where they got the speedy back name from.
Mm.
But they used to just pick a bunch of like Aussie Sevens players. But as you said, like, there is a bunch there, like the NPC is a great competition. Ulster picked up many players from NPC before. With the likes of Sam Gilbert coming over, maybe that's a time for change. I know that they've signed Will Connors as well, and they're expecting a lot more from Leinster. But as you said, there's an untapped potential there in the New Zealand sphere, where there's a lot of good players on not that much money that Connacht can absolutely pay for.
That's
Mm.
why I like the idea of them getting Frowley. He might bring sort of that X factor sort of excitement, take the game by the neck. So we'll see what happens next season.
There's a lot on him for next season,
Yeah.
because he's the one who decides whether that's a success or failure. Because going from Leinster to Connacht, it would be easy for him to think like, oh, this isn't the correct trajectory. You could argue, sorry, Connacht fans. So he needs to go there with a mindset of proving people wrong, and to go like, no, I'm going to show that I have been wrongly treated by Leinster, rather than like, oh yeah, because it's always a thing. Like Everton always used to be this in the English Premiership of, like, they would sign the kind of fringe players from the big teams and then wonder why they didn't work. Whereas other teams would sign the best players from small teams and then it would go great. And that for me is what kind of needs to be careful of, is if you
Mhm.
sign the worst players from the best teams, that's not always the way to go. You want to sign the best players from the worst teams. Anyway, enough about that. Let's now talk about Lions versus Bulls. And Mohammed, the Bulls' recovery is still making steps in the right progress. They feel like they're back on track, but gosh, the Lions were pretty abject in this game.
It was insane. The business, let's start with the Bulls though. Away win, revenging the fact the Lions defeated the Bulls at in Pretoria up the road early in the season, so the Bulls got revenge. The business Bulls gonna have a very cheerful and upbeat shareholders meeting next week. Yeah, look, I was both teams having flown over from Europe. So there's no excuse per se in terms of like one team was in South Africa the whole time and it's like playing at home. Both flying into the Gauteng province. They reside in the same province, just different municipalities. Um, yeah, it was a combination. The Bulls were keeping it tight early in the game though. And then once they realized they had the game over the Lions. They weren't even that much. There was a click of like, we're going to give it to the backs or so. And they just started piling on the points and like expressing themselves. And it's a weird situation of like the Bulls being really good and the Lions somehow being very flat at the same time. The Bulls, by the way, were at the bottom of the South African conference. This is their first win against any South African team. Their fourth game against South African teams, and this is their first win. They lost to the Stormers, they lost to the Sharks, they lost to the Lions once before, and now they've avenged that loss. And the Lions had pretty much their best possible team, barring a few injuries here and there. Um, and they still look sort of disorganized, somewhat rudderless, and that type of thing. You zooming in on Baby Bok superstar Ashimpede, much is obviously expected of him. But yeah, I wouldn't. Not that we are because we're zooming in on him, we're putting it on him. But like such a young player, I was more disappointed that the senior players not stepping up. But yeah, the Bulls, like the Sharks, are not necessarily out of it. They've got some good results of late, but they need to add those results together because the Bulls have been doing well against non-South African teams, but not South African teams.
Yeah, they're 3 on the bounce now for the Bulls. They can go into that Sharks game with, I don't know, confidence. Like they can go into it with optimism, I think.
Mm.
And I'm kind of just looking forward to seeing where this recovery goes because it feels like they've gone back to their identity a little bit. And you have to credit Ackers really because he was coming in for a lot of stick, and obviously things were going very badly. And he's definitely stopped the rot, and they just seem to be improving game on game now. So I'll bring up some highlights. But like I said, the Lions, especially in defense, were very, very soft. Like
What's
from a
interesting?
Bulls point of view, you can only beat what's in front of you. But gosh,
What's interesting is that the Bulls are going to face the Sharks in their next fixture, but that's 3 weeks away. But the Lions are actually going to take on the Sharks in 20 days' time, on the 21st of February, if I'm not mistaken. So the Lions and the Sharks will be the only teams playing that week because it's sort of a catch-up fixture because the South African teams got sort of Christmas break off, and yeah, we'll be interested to see. And that game is going to be in Joburg. So because the Lions already defeated the Sharks in Durban, so it'll be interesting to see the Sharks having this momentum. Going to be maybe slight favorites at Ellis Park because it's against the Lions who haven't necessarily played that well in this game. Obviously, Sharky was very stoked about the fact that the Sharks won and are on top of the South African conference. So maybe we win the Shield this season. But yeah, because the Sharks will play, they will have less rest, but they would have match practice. Whereas the Bulls are going to have 3 weeks off. Maybe they'll organize, because teams often do this, they'll organize a unofficial practice game against like a non-URC franchise union like Southwestern District Eagles or something, just to keep people going.
mm, mm. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see where the Bulls go from here. Honestly, I feel like the Lions are just going to be normal lower mid-table team this season. I'm not seeing anything different. Anyway,
Yeah, but random stuff is happening all season. Somehow we beat the Stormers twice, so yeah, I'm not counting
yeah.
any chickens.
Anyway, Adam, it's time to bring you back in. Provided you're not frozen. Yeah, he's not frozen. He's back.
I'm, I'm
It's
having
time to talk
my
about.
technical difficulties. I apologize.
It's time to talk about Ulster versus Cardiff. And I know there's one particular thing that Adam wants to talk about in this game, and we shall get to it. Don't you worry about that. But just quickly on the game, I don't think there's tons to say from a Cardiff point of view. Only scored 2 tries in it,
I
but
think
it's one of them.
it is. I think Cardiff played really well defensively. That's something that I can say about Cardiff. I think they made they already beat us this in the Challenge Cups this year when we went 19-0 up, and I felt like that was almost like gonna repeat itself. This was a game as well, I must add, that they had its first TMO check in the 81st minute. So in the full match, in the full 80, there was no TMO checks, no like checks of anything. Holly Davidson, I think, was really fluid in what she was in refereeing. I like granted, like it was a really good, great performance. Um, for Ulster points, I think we overplayed the ball. I really did think both teams were like overplaying it. Like we like they were trying to play. We were trying to both play flashy rugby. I didn't realize that Lee Halfpenny was on the bench. Um,
Did he not come on?
we were. I don't think he did. I
No,
can't.
not
I
surprised.
don't remember a time that he did come on. To be fair, um, it was one of those games where there was a lot of moments where Ulster, and I think it's really interesting because we complement Ulster's attack so much, but I'm always one in the mind that if we it works because we take the chance, and when the chance doesn't come, then it looks like we're overplaying the ball, and I feel like that was the difference that the other night, last night, when there was multiple chances that we could have taken, there was multiple passes that could have stuck, but they didn't, and it just felt a bit like, ooh. Then again, standout players. Matthew Dalton had his best game in an Ulster jersey. He was incredible. He was playing back row. I believe he was playing back row for Ulster for the first time since probably when he first broke through in the under 20s would have played six, but he was phenomenal. He was taking over, like he got a lot of space to run. I feel like we exposed their wings well in that sense when we did catch him in the blind and loose as well. Um like this was a moment, this is a Matthew Dalton moment. If you're watching online, he was very good at the like a nice wee offload to Dave McCann. Dave McCann as well played a brilliant game. um I think I do think we had a better scrummaging performance than we did last week. I think Scotty Wilson is really improving in terms of his scrummaging, which is good for Ulster and of course good for Ireland because
Yeah, that's
he is
something
a
Cardiff were
quality.
worried about was because they've had um they've lost like their first and second choice props to Wales duty. So they had
Yeah,
Reece Barrett and Javon Sebastian's done a job, to be fair, so it's maybe not that bad.
yeah. I think with the whole setup was that I think was everyone's the one thing that everyone says about Scotty Wilson, and it's the same as Angus Bell in international rugby, is like their scrummaging could improve, and I do get that, but they had a really good scrummaging performance. The try that I want to talk about, Angus Bell's sidestep of
Let's
the
get it up.
fullback.
Let's
It
go.
it
Oh,
was one
poor
of those
Cam win it. This
moments.
is just his life, unfortunately.
It was one of those moments that I was just like, he's 20 stone. He's 20 stone, and like there was another thing that I mentioned on a group chat was that every single time Angus Bell got the ball and he was going to go for a run, he dummies the ball. And for a loose head prop, and for as part of the front row union, I'm not a a prop. I was never a prop, but I'm sure his license has been revoked because I'm pretty sure we might as well be playing him
It's a
for
ridiculous step on win it. That angle really shows it because
yeah.
I wait for it to come round again. He
He's
kind of
also
stepped
wearing
him twice.
he did he like half stepped, he juked him and then he stepped him. It was and then he
Yeah, so
stepped
he
another
goes through the
winger.
gap here, and Winnett is coming across him this way. So he kind of steps that way to get him to commit. I can win it. I'm just really sorry. I think I'm far enough into the podcast now. Sorry, Harley. I know I go on about this and you don't like it, but he's not a defender. He does not like making tackles, and
Oh.
he's been humiliated there a little bit. Johan Lloyd's not done
I
much coming across either.
no. he was wearing two different boots as well because he broke his boots in warm up because that was the first thing that they said to him was like, "What's up with the two different things of two different colors of boots," which would also have his front row union license revoked as well. But for it was one of those that Charlie Irvine also had a very good try. I think he had a really good game as well. Charlie Irvine playing with Ian Henderson is worth its weight in gold at the minute. It's sort of like a handing of the baton moment. I feel like he's a very good player. He's getting picked in the Ireland XV setup as well. Um, yeah, it was a good game for Ulster. There was parts where I felt like we could have lost it, and it felt a lot like the Scarlets game last season. However, I am glad that the lads can now have a break, and also the Irish lads. I know that most of them, like 15 are in Ireland teams at the minute, wouldn't have a break. But, I think as David said in the Interpro show, with winning games and being good comes the curse of having international selection. And I don't
Yeah.
mind that as long as we're winning games and we're unbeaten at Ravenhill this year. So, that's what we can do.
Just quickly on Johan Lloyd, that is the other thing about where Cardiff's squad. So Johan Lloyd was a guy that the Scarlets tried to make into a fly half for 2 seasons and played wing in this game. Like
It's
he's the
it's
Welsh James
mental.
O'Connor.
It's wild. Like there was a lot of matchups where I felt it was interesting. However, there's a lot of talking about Callum Sheedy as well. Um, I can understand now the difference between Costello and Sheedy. He's watching one week and the one the next week. I do remember Sheedy being okay. He played for Bristol, didn't he?
Yeah.
But like he sort of got caught out a few times as well. There's a lot of kicks where he kicked it into open play. It could have went well, but then he would have just kicked it straight to like the likes of Zach Ward, which would have tumbled over like about 4 or 5 players as he normally does at wing. But yeah, a good win for Ulster. Solid performance by Cardiff, but I would feel like they left something out there.
Hmm. Yeah, potentially. Ethan, I'm conscious that we spoke about the two Scottish teams earlier and you haven't had anything to say in a little while. Any
Yeah.
thoughts on this game?
I mean, as Adam was saying, that like having to suffer from international duty is one of those things where kind of like at least like, oh, our players are good enough, and it's quite a nice excuse if things go quite badly.
Fair enough. It is a ready-made excuse.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It
coming
just
on to
makes
the
it makes me feel
sorry, go
nice.
on.
It makes me feel
Yeah.
nice after years of pain. It makes me feel nice because when we did have international quality players and we were losing, I couldn't have said that. So it makes me feel
Yeah.
nice.
Coming on to the final game then, which was Ospreys versus Dragons, 19 points to 13, a last-minute win in the rain for the Ospreys. As soon as the camera angle changed, you could see the rain was coming down. I was like, hang on a minute, pouring rain in the mud at Bridgend. I know exactly how this game is going to finish. And it finished exactly that with Keelan Giles crossing the try line on the last throws of the game. And Dragons will be kicking themselves. The Dragons were the better team in this game. They had loads and loads of chances in the first half. They should have scored 3 tries in that first half and didn't. I think that they didn't get the rub of the green with the referee. I think there was a couple of calls that probably should have gone their way that didn't. And ultimately, that's the way that the game has gone in the end. Obviously, Ospreys losing a lot of players to Wales duty. Dragons only have 2 players called up to Wales duty. And they probably should have more. Probably, I'd say that Shea Hope and Rio Dyer, who played in this game, should probably both be with Wales, in my opinion. But Ospreys got Gareth Thomas and Ruben Morgan-Williams back at scrum half, and they get it done in the end. Obviously, as we said last week for the Ospreys, massive context around this game. Like I said, Dragons should be absolutely gutted. If you want to get more on this game, you can check out our sister pod Wrap, where you'll get both a Dragons and an Ospreys point of view on it. I think that Jesson Hopkins is probably having a good season for the Ospreys at the moment. He's probably, not a player who you would have thought of as being a key man for them, but he's turning himself into that. I think Jack Walsh absolutely is a key man for them, and he's just without him. I think the Ospreys would be in serious trouble if they didn't have Jack Walsh. I think he's the first name on the team sheet, and Ryan Smith signed from Australia. What a signing he's been. He's really doing the business for them. Like I said, a low-scoring game, a proper derby. There was some very choice chants going around at times. So the Ospreys get the job done, and they're 4 now from 11, which puts them, I think, still in the top 8. If I just check the table
Yep.
now, yeah, they are 8th. The Sharks do have a game on hand in them though, and are 1 point behind, and the Lions have a game in hand on them, and they are 1 point behind as well. Even Connacht are within a win, and they've got a game in hand. So probably not going to stay there, I don't think, by the end of the season. But this, like I said, the context around this game is kind of talking about it from an Ospreys point of view is very difficult. But I think the Dragons will be absolutely fuming about how this game went. And from what I've seen, David Buttress, the Dragons owner, tweeted after, he tweeted, "Congratulations, Ospreys, but that's not right." So it kind of shows you how the feeling of the game was about that one.
Interesting to see Cormac Foley on the bench for Ospreys on loan from Leinster.
Yeah, just phoned in. I think it was one of those just injury cover, to be honest. I think he's probably had about 3 training sessions. What a squad to be parachuted into, though. What an environment to spend a week in.
I can imagine as a kit collector, I do it for the really nice Ospreys kit. I think that kit is really nice.
Oh
I really
God.
like the sponsor as well. But I can imagine that environment is interesting for him, to say the least.
So what you're saying is you're coming out of retirement, Adam.
Yes, I'm coming out. I'm playing for the Ospreys next week.
Hey, look, if you hang around enough, that might happen. But anyway,
I'm close enough to Wales. I think I'm about 10 minutes away. So
that brings us to an end of the URC action. There's no predictions because it's Six Nations duty next week. We are thinking about what we're going to do for the Six Nations. Nothing firmed up yet. But quickly, let's just get some predictions for the Six Nations just because we're here. So France versus Ireland, Adam.
I'd say France, because Ireland are in an injury crisis and we're going to try something different and hopefully not lose by much.
Okay, Ethan, Scotland versus Italy, or Italy versus Scotland, I should say.
Ooh, I feel, considering that Duhan's probably been dropped, I feel Townsend's trying to salvage his job. So I think he's gonna try and go roll the dice with Stein and possibly Dobie on the wing. So I think Scotland should win. Hopefully a bit more when we lost last time.
I think Scotland are going to win as well. And then I think that England are going to absolutely thrash Wales. But I don't think that takes much of a brain to guess. So anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you to Irish Adam, Scottish Ethan, and South African Mohammed, and me, Welsh Hugh. We will catch you at some point when the URC is back. We'll do a show mid Six Nations for this URC round that is there. And keep your eyes peeled in case we manage to pull a Six Nations show together in the meantime. Anyway, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, thank you.
And speak to you next time. Bye.